What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. I'm once again joined by Tyler. We are back for another video in our Star Wars community series, a community series that airs every single Thursday on our channel leading up to The Rise of Skywalker, releasing in theaters on December 20th. Again, we've just started this community series. We did a video last week, and they're weekly videos all the way up to the film's release. Once it's out, we will, of course, be covering it as well right around Christmas time on the channel. So loads of Star Wars stuff to look out for. And for this video, we want to do something a little bit different. I know personally for me, I've seen a lot of the comments on the channel, not just like the last Star Wars video or two, but really going back quite a while. And, you know, there's a lot of people that are just fed up with Star Wars and that are kind of just piecing out, saying like they don't care. And that's kind of perfect for this topic because we want to talk about if Star Wars fails, if Episode 9 is a failure, and we can talk about what that actually means. I think that's kind of important to talk about in the age of Captain Marvel, you know, making so much money and people calling it a failure and then people saying, how could you say that, and stuff like that. I think it's important to note what actually would constitute Episode 9 being a failure. But if it does fail in one way or the other, what will that mean? What will that do to Star Wars going forward? That's what we want to talk about. So, Tyler, again, you know, Captain Marvel made like $1.2 billion, and I think you and me are some of the people that would call it a failure. So firstly, what do you think it means to say Episode 9 failed, if it does? And if it does fail, you know, what do you think that kind of paints the picture for the future Star Wars movies? We know about the another Rian Johnson trilogy, if that's still going on. We know about the D&D, Knights of the Old Republic, lots of Star Wars stuff coming. What do you think it would do, that kind of stuff?
The best thing to look at, because you can't look at money. You really can't look at money because, like Alex just said, it's going to make a lot of money. It's the final Star Wars film. It comes out right before Christmas. A lot of people like to go to the movies while their kids are on winter break or Christmas break. People are off work, whatever. It's going to get money. You know, it's going to make money. Making money doesn't mean it's a good film. So you can't go, that's just not a good indicator. But here's what's a good indicator. Does The Rise of Skywalker get pulled from theaters like it did in China for The Last Jedi? If that happens, that's an indicator. I think it was out like 2 weeks, and it was so, like, no one was going, so they literally just pulled it. That's, like, never happened before. So if that happens again, there's a sign. If the merchandise doesn't really move, that's a sign. And we'll probably see figures like that about, like, their merchandise not really moving. And again, Christmas, it's Christmas. So there's going to be people who are buying toys for their kids. If the toys don't sell, then that's not a good sign. So, you know, it's 100% possible for this film to not do good. I can see why 8 would not do as well. I just feel like now looking at it, when you look at the artwork with the red and it's kind of like a brownish, like a tan and a red, I can see how it's not as appealing. Where when you have like white with blue, which is now the theme for 9, I can see that's a little bit more appealing. It seems not as like angry or harsh. That's just, you know, when you have like tans and red, it kind of doesn't seem kiddish. But when you have white with blue, it does. So toys might sell a little bit better because I'm talking about packaging there. The Rey, she looks a lot better. She's all in white. So it looks, something about it makes it feel more, I don't know, like kind of not as off-putting color on the color spectrum. So it may do well because of that kind of stuff. People don't care who the director is, who the writer is. They don't go by, oh, well, is it RJ or is it JJ? They don't care. So it's going to be about, like, what are the reviews? What are people saying online? It's going to be about that. If people are saying it's not good, they're not going to get it. If the kids just don't care because they don't really have they're just not into it, and so there's limited merchandise now. So like they're really trying to push that Dio droid. Well, if BB-8 didn't do that great, he did all right, but he didn't do nearly as good as R2-D2. So if BB-8 didn't do great, who I think's cuter than R2-D2, Dio, who's ugly, sorry Dio, but you're hideous, he's not going to do well. He just isn't. It's not as cute looking as where boy and girl would both like BB-8. I don't think anybody's going to like Dio. Just the shape and everything. So I think they already are off to a bad start with the new, like what could be merchandise in this film. I think they're off to a bad start. So you have that to look at. And now if it's a failure, right? Like if it's considered a failure where it just doesn't do that well, makes a lot of money, but overall like ratings are not good, merchandise doesn't sell. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think the RJ films, the RJ trilogy, the Rian Johnson trilogy, I think that's canceled. I think the D&D, the Knights of the Old Republic trilogy, I think that stays. And I think it still comes out in 2022. But I think the RJ trilogy is canceled and they axe RJ from Star Wars. I also think that within 5 years they'll get rid of Kathleen Kennedy. I think we're going to see a lot more new Star Wars shows on Disney+. I just feel like people really... to get, because they have to do something to get an audience back into Star Wars. If you're spending tons of money on these films, people have to show up. And I don't think it's working with the kids. The animated shows work. Resistance didn't work. Rebels worked. But I think you're going to see more kid Star Wars shows. I also think there's going to be almost less kid Star Wars shows and more adult Disney Plus Star Wars shows. Because I think what's happened is the kids nowadays, Star Wars isn't unique enough. Because you could literally, if you have a Star Wars game that plays like Destiny and Star Wars, even though it's completely different, for them it doesn't seem any different. Sci-fi is so big now that it's like, okay, well, this is Star Wars. This is one of 100 sci-fi games and movies and shows. So for them, it's not that unique. Where I think my age group, the age group that came before me, and the one before them, they're still around. I think they're the ones that that Lucasfilm or Disney, whatever, that they need to get back. That's what I think. So I think they're going to focus more on, because I think Mandalorian's going to do really well. I think the Obi-Wan series is going to do very well. So I think they're going to do more and almost cater more to the older age groups rather than the young age groups. I think there's going to be a switch in that, like who they're targeting. Because right now they're trying to target a new generation. I don't think it worked. I think they're going to have to target the generation that was there that already loved Star Wars. So I think that's going to change. I think you're going to see more games, more similar to Jedi Fallen Order, Battlefront. I think you're going to see more of those games coming out. So I feel like we're going to get bombarded with Star Wars, but I honestly think that if they remove some of the people and they space it out right and they truly focus on catering to who was already a Star Wars fan, not who may become one, but who is already a Star Wars fan, I think we're actually going to get more quality Star Wars content through gaming, through the shows, and it'll trickle down, which it should be trickling up, but I think it'll trickle down into the Star Wars films. I think we're going to hear about a brand new trilogy that probably comes out around 2026 or something like that, or 2027, completely new. They can't, obviously it can't be about Skywalkers or anything of those characters, but maybe they do bring back Rey and Finn and put them on a whole new adventure. They'll be a little bit older. Maybe you have Ahsoka thrown in there or something. I don't know how they do it to get some of those people, because there's a lot of people who love the Clone Wars, which I have a feeling there's going to be a spinoff of that, and I forgot to mention that. So I do think we're going to get, from this failure, and I'm predicting it will be, honestly, and I don't want it to be. But honestly, if it takes Star Wars 9, if it takes it, if it means that Star Wars 9 has to fail for us to get, even within 7 years, for us to get quality content, Star Wars content, I don't care. Do whatever you have to do, honestly. And I think that's exactly what will happen. And the nice thing, I think, is if they did wait until 2027, brought back Rey, brought back Finn, yeah, she's a Jedi, whatever, but make everything totally different, make it way more Star Wars. And you're going to have the kids that were young going to see Rey. Now they're going to be a little bit older. They're going to be in their teens. They might be a little bit more interested. And now they're going to be familiar. I just feel like that's one of their best ways to do it. They can't keep rehashing, obviously, the same thing. How many times can you... I mean, literally, the final film, it ends with, the villain that was the villain among all the films. In the first three, we didn't know. Not the original three, but 1, 2, 3, we didn't know that it was the Emperor until the third film. But 4, 5, and 6, that was the main villain, was the Emperor. Now they're ending this new generation with the last two generations' villain. Doesn't bother me. I can see why, full circle. But, when they come back, they can't do that again. And they will come back, because they have to come back to it. And they've already kind of hinted at it. But you just got to throw them on a whole new... Here's a brand new villain who's worse than the last guy, because that's classic movies. That's just what they do. And that sets up an entire new group or a whole new storyline and spin-offs among that for Star Wars, leading you into 2030 and beyond. And again, they're going to use that same tactic of, well, we're not really going to go after the young generation. Not like we're going to go after the generation that was young where we made the mistake. They were young when we had 7 come out. Now they're a little bit older. So we're going to try to go after them, and then the people who were in their 20s and 30s who liked 1, 2, and 3, or even 4, 5, and 6, because the little kids don't watch probably 4, 5, and 6. So let's bring back the people who are alive for 1, 2, and 3, or the people who, the generation for 1, 2, and 3, and the 7, 8, 9. Now they're all going to be a little bit older, but still in Star Wars. And now what we're going to do with this whole new storyline is we're going to cater to those people. We're not going to worry about their kids or grandkids. We're going to cater to those people, and then as the grandkids and the kids get a little bit older, well, we're in our 2040s, the little kids will be a little bit older. So basically what I'm saying is I think they're going to say screw this young generation because it didn't work. And it clearly didn't work. When you go to Galaxy's Edge or when you see the videos, not that many people go, it's a handful, but you don't really see a lot of kids. You see a lot of adults. That's what I'm saying. So will Star Wars Episode 9 fail? Or, what happens if it fails? Probably more Star Wars than ever before. But hopefully, they get rid of the people who they should get rid of. And I think they will, because they can only hurt so long. They really can. And because they get rid of those losers, and they are losers, we'll have better quality content.
I agree. Star Wars is in a very difficult situation now, and the future, while there is just so much going on with Star Wars, Episode 9 really can steer the way, one way or the other. I think Episode 9, it's going to do better than Episode 8. I even think just word of mouth is going to be like, well, it's better. Like, it didn't insult people. It didn't insult the fan base like Episode 8 did. I think a lot of those things are going to be true. However, we can say that all we want, and I think even money-wise, the final movie, I would think that it would do a whole lot better. But you look at really all the outside people talking about this movie, and the enthusiasm just isn't there. And, people, I'm sure they will, if they need to, point to Star Wars fatigue, which I truly believe doesn't exist. But I agree with Tyler. If this is a failure, if this fails, which I think it'll make a significant amount of money, it'll be talked about better than The Last Jedi. But I think the overall thing we'll be saying to each other is this trilogy was overall a failure. I mean, it really hurt Star Wars. So when you look at that, I agree with Tyler. I think they need to diversify. They need to show us there's more into this universe. They need to give us more Star Wars-y things. Say what you want about the prequels, but the more time goes on, the more I think people are warming up to the prequels. I don't necessarily know why. I still think they're pretty darn bad, but I understand there's something to them, and I do see. I mean, like every year, they tend to get just a little bit more love, and I think that's just because people at least respected George Lucas had a vision, and he knew what he wanted to do, whether or not it was executed well. He at least was trying. And, he's the father of Star Wars, stuff like that. But not just that, not just those movies, but back in that day, the books, the lore, the games. We got so many different kinds of games. Star Wars was huge, and we felt like we were in like the different planets, the different kind of characters that we were introduced to, the Clone Wars, how the Clone Wars show started. I mean, it was really booming, and we need to get back to that. Yeah, those movies were not good. Really, no movies have been solid ever since the original trilogy. Force Awakens had a lot of stuff going for it. Rogue One, I thought, was a really good film. But, in terms of, actually having one go after the other and nailing a couple in a row, they've really yet to do it. And I think that would actually be a step in the right direction. Having The Mandalorian, I think they're already doing it, and we're seeing it. Mandalorian, Obi-Wan, bringing Clone Wars back to actually end it the way they want, and I'm sure there'll probably be more animated shows. Games, we see EA at least trying with Jedi Fallen Order. I'd like to see more single-player games. Sure, you can do multiplayer. There's rumors that maybe we even get a Knights of the Old Republic open, like an MMO, and I think that would be great. I think that's what they're already doing, and it could be because they know, no matter what Episode 9 does, we need to start spreading it out. We need to start getting people excited about different Star Wars projects, because people just are not. They may see this movie, but I just don't sense there's any excitement to this movie whatsoever. And it's sad. It really is sad, because this is a Star Wars movie. There should be a ton of hype for it, and there is. I'm not saying there's zero, but I really think just in the wide view of it, it's not doing what they expect. And I think that'll ultimately be the main thing, is kind of word of mouth, talking about this trilogy once it's over, that it just wasn't good enough. It just didn't do anything good. I think that'll be the biggest thing that, like Tyler said, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Kathleen Kennedy in you've already kind of seen it. People have been rumored, is Kevin Feige taking over the Star Wars universe? Is Kathleen Kennedy kind of getting bumped? Could happen. We could see her start to kind of be more behind the scenes, and that would kind of mean to the people that would know that she's not really there anymore, right? Rian Johnson, his trilogy should already be canceled, but I think that would definitely happen as well. Less movies, more of expanding the universe and making Star Wars relevant and making Star Wars kind of diverse in a good diversity way. I'm saying showing different planets, showing different kinds of aliens and characters and different stories and different games that we haven't seen in a while. That's what they need to get back to. If it takes Episode 9 to suck, or to really this entire trilogy to kind of ruin Star Wars in a way to then get back to what worked in the past, then I'm all for it. So guys, let us know in the comments below, what do you think? Do you think Episode 9 is going to fail? Do you think this trilogy has failed or will fail? And if it does, what would you consider a failure? And also, what do you think that would mean for the future of Star Wars? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel Podcast Now. Hit that bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up. And again, they air every single Thursday leading in to The Rise of Skywalker, releasing in theaters December 20th. We will see you guys for next Thursday's video.